Hi everyone, it's Desiree. Now I'm going to say right off the bat, this is going to be a long video. So if you don't like long videos, skim through or fast forward if you like. But on this one, this is technique number 2, and we're going to talk about ink smooshing. And we're going to use all types of mediums. So here I'm showing Stampin' Up, Distress, Distress Oxides, just to show a few. So for the first segment, let's look at just using a single ink pad, not 2 colors, 1 color. And the techniques when I show you, I'm going to show them to you on Bristol paper, and I'm going to show them to you on regular cardstock. Now the cardstock that I used is Recollections 110 pound. You do, if you're using cardstock, you want to make sure that it's a thick, heavy cardstock. It's a lot of water that you're putting on this. You can use Bristol. You can also use watercolor paper. Watercolor paper will react the same as Bristol for the most part for this. You'll need a craft mat or a surface to put your ink down, a spray bottle, and of course an ink pad. So again, I'm using the Stampin' Up inks. You can see you just squish your ink pad down onto the craft mat and you add your water. Take your piece of paper, smush down onto it. Hence the term ink smooshing. So you can leave it just like that. You can let it dry naturally because that ink is going to do some crazy things as it dries. You can use your heat tool for embossing. You can also use a hairdryer for this because you're not embossing. Okay, so you don't need to have a heat tool to have that piece dry. Okay, again, just you can use what you have on this. So what I do like to do, because I'm impatient, is I have my stamping mat pad there, which is just a scratch pad to give it a soft surface, and I do like to use my heat gun. So you can see the ink will move. I put it on top of a wooden board so that I don't warp my mat underneath. When I have my cutting mat there, it'll actually warp and get all wiggly. So now the Bristol paper, that was the cardstock, and you can see you have some great colors there. Now I'm using bold colors here. Okay, so if you used a lighter color, of course it would be lighter. So for the Bristol paper that I'm using, you can see that it looks lighter. That's because most of the ink went onto the cardstock. I did not add more ink. I did not add more water. I just took it for what it was. So you can get these different values. Even with this one ink pad, you could add more water to that puddle that you have on your craft mat to make it lighter, and then dip your piece of paper once it's dry back into it, and then you'll have a soft shade behind it. So with one ink pad, you can get multiple colors or values. I like the splatters. I like the like you're just splashing the ink on there. You can see I'm going to go in with a second layer. I'm going to dry that layer. So every time you take your piece of paper, whether it's cardstock, watercolor paper, or Bristol, you want to make sure that you dry in between and you get layers that's coming off of that. That's the whole concept of ink smooshing. You can use watercolors for this, but again, you want the concept of ink smooshing, at least to me, is the craft mat, ink onto the craft mat, you're adding water, and then you are dipping your water down into it, or your paper down into that mixture that's on your craft mat. So now let's look at 3 different inks and the different ways that you can use that. So this time I want to use Distress ink. Very widely known. This is kind of where this all came about. So you put your first layer down. Again, add your water and just dip down. You can see I dipped down a couple times. When you do that, you lose the splattering look. So you can see now I kind of have a big splatter. That's kind of very solid, very uniform, which is fine if that's what you're looking for. So If you just go down once, you know, straight down and up, don't slide it across. If you just want the splattery look, go straight down, come up. If you want a more solid, larger area look, you can keep going up and down and you can get that. You can see just by me going up and down, I now, with the second value color, you can now see those definitions. So the lighter color puts the base, puts a color base, and now with this second color, now we're going to let those differences come in. But you're always going to see me drawing. Now we're going in with the darkest colors very quickly. I want this to be super, super quick because the dark can overtake. Now you can see how I'm playing with that. I'm actually moving the colors underneath it. I'm actually pushing down too much because again, the water-based inks are going to reactivate with water. So again, you want to be quick with it depending upon your look. You can see why this video is going to be long. I'm keeping this, I only sped this up slightly, and you're going to watch the whole process. I did extremely very little editing on this, but I want you to see all the differences. Now, I took all three colors and put them down at once, sprayed water. Now here comes the Bristol or watercolor page that's coming in. You can see how that works. I like it better when you, for me personally, I like it better when you do the three individual colors separately because you will get this mixture. Now, it doesn't mean I don't like this because I do have that blend that's going on. Because then you can choose one of your darker shades to pick up your splatters up on that. So again, to me, concept of ink smooshing is very quick. You will get inky because it goes all over the place, so it's a lot of fun. And you can create so many backgrounds. I'm keeping all of them from this video because they're going to make great cards. They're going to make great cutouts or whatever we want to use them for. Because remember, this technique is just not for a background. It can be used for anything. But can we still do this with markers? Absolutely. Again, water-based. So I pulled out my Tombow. I pulled out my Artises. I pulled out my Distress. I pulled out my Zigs. And I even pulled out Crayola. Fine tip markers. Yeah, Crayolas are water-based. So let's start out with the Tombows. I just picked out 3 shades. Remember, when you're using more than one color, you want to make sure that you're picking colors that will not create mud. If I have a red and a green, I could get mud. If I have a purple and a yellow, I could get mud. So you always want to make sure that your colors are close in the value. So even though I have a purple, it's okay that I'm with red. So you can see I put all 3 colors down and I just turned it as I went up and down. I have some splatter. I have some areas where these cards are melding together. Excuse me, the colors, not cards, colors are molding together and creating another color. Again, you can take that and go back in if you want. I'm just going to add just a little bit more. So this is going to be a little softer because I'm keeping what's originally down there. Again, cardstock is always going first. The Bristol paper is always coming in last. You'll know because the Bristol paper is bigger. It's a bigger cut than the cardstock. So you can see I have a nice soft blend. That'd be pretty for Easter. And now I'm going to dry that. Again, dry between your layers before you do your next smoosh. So smush, dry, smush, dry. I can now pick up those intricate colors and make them overlap. So using Tombow markers, you can get the same effects. You may not get the level of intensity excuse me, that you can from an ink pad because an ink pad has so much color. You can also use reinkers. Now, I did not show reinkers. You can use the Stampin' Up! Reinkers. You can use the Distress Ink reinkers. You can use the Oxide reinkers, as long as it's water-based. Again, just be careful how much you put down. Your reinkers are a lot more intense. Now let's try it with the zigs. So here we're going to go with some green shades. Same thing, you're just going to scribble down on your craft mat, and then you're going to spray it with water, and then you're going to dip, and you're going to just keep on going up and down. Now, again, if markers are the only medium that you have, you will get the same results. And again, it all depends upon the markers as well, and the colors that you choose. I do suggest that if you're using markers, if you don't want it to be so pale, then use darker, vibrant primary colors, so to speak. Go with darker ones, because when you add water, it's going to lighten up a level or a little bit. So just keep that in mind. So there's the cardstock first. And now here is the Bristol card. So same effects. Again, you're not doing what's mixed media, okay? You're not constantly building and building and building. You're looking to create a slight background. So you can use that cardstock. I personally do suggest at least a 110 pound. I have tried this with a Nina 80 pound, and you know, it really warped badly, very badly. So you can get Recollections, as I said, 110 pound for a good price, 100 sheets for, you know, a decent price. And you can use a coupon too. And they also put it on sale a lot of times. So now we're going to try the Arteza brushes, which I am really finding that these brushes, as I continue to use them and just play with them, are very comparable to in our card making world. So if you have any more questions, I did do a demo and a review. You'll see that within my library. I encourage you to check it out. But for crafters that are just starting, that really like the look of a water-based marker, these are a great start, and I believe a finish. I think once you get these, you do not need to continue with anything else. So you can see I'm getting the same effects between the cardstock and the Bristol paper that I'm using. And again, it's the same technique. So we just have a couple more. I believe what will be coming up next are the Ranger distress markers. But again, you can see you can layer. It's a quick motion, and you don't want to overwork it. And this is not something that you need to be precise with. It doesn't mean that you can't. Trust me. I mean, you can have your colors in certain areas. You can have a gradient ink smush. You can position where you tap your paper so that the effects that you're looking for are in certain areas. So you can do that. But I suggest just let it go. Just have fun with it. So here I've pulled out my distress markers. Now I also like to use these to actually watercolor images as well. So, but you can do an ink smushing. Now, see how I'm getting mud. I went with pink, blue, and a green shade. Because of the green and red that they're coming over, you're going to get mud. So doing a double layer on this would be bad. You only want to go down once and come back up. Don't go back in there, because you can actually see the inks on the craft mat, they're starting to turn brown. So if you want to do a second layer or another coating on top of this, you need to reapply your medium that you're using onto your craft mat. So you can see I'm only doing this twice, and I'm hardly moving and turning the card when I'm doing that, because we do like, I mean, that one's good for Easter too. We do like the bright colors and have them all together. So the problem is sometimes they just will create mud if we overwork them too much. So again, you have the same effects coming across. Now you can see I'm going down. Look, there's the mud. So you can see by going up and down on that, with these three colors, you're actually getting a gray. It's actually pretty gray, believe it or not. So I didn't think this one was too bad, actually. But you can see if you're not going to get the color that you're looking for when you do that. So those are the three different shades, and that last one I did on cardstock. So again, we have all of these markers. They are an investment. Can you still have a marker that has the same principles? Yes. Crayola has a set called Superfine Tips. There are 50 colors in that collection, and they are around $10. You can always find them at your local hobby stores. Of course, Michael's. And look what you can get. It's the same thing. Now, with these Crayolas, you can also watercolor with them. As my hand gets very close into the camera. Yep, we're going to do that whole autofocus thing. You can, the same things that you can do with distress markers. And I'm just going to say the distress markers. They function the same way. So you can see that I'm able to ink smush with these. I am able to scribble these down onto a craft mat, just like you see. And if I wasn't doing ink smushing, I would be able to take an aqua brush or a water brush or a regular paintbrush with water and pick that up and watercolor with it. So these, if you're just starting out and, you know, maybe the Artisas are still out of your range, these are an excellent, excellent replacement. If you'd like to see a video of me just using those or Crayola products, let me know in the comments. I think I'm sure most of you already know, but I do think that you would be absolutely surprised at what the Crayola products can do in the card making world. Excuse me. Their products are phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And they have a very big range. So if you're interested, again, let me know. But look at the ink smushing that you can get from Crayolas. And to me, it looks the same. It's no different than the Artisas, the Tombos, the Zigs, and the distress markers that I used. Again, around $10 for 50 markers and all the colors that you could ever want. So keep it in mind, something to think about. Glitter markers. I was thinking about those. Could we do the same types of things with our glitter markers? Now, I didn't pull in the Wink of Stellas because they to me are unique. I think you could still do it, but the Spectrum Noirs are big. The other reason why is because I have all the colors of the Spectrum Noirs. So you would use them just like a marker. Just prime them up a little bit to get more of the ink down onto your craft mat. And again, I'm so sorry. And again, you would do the same thing. Now, I do wish the camera would pick up the shimmer that is just going through these cards, because the shimmer does stay with the card. I think they do the ink smushing technique beautifully. You can faintly see it in the darker areas. But I think they can work very well. So I'm curious, I'm always thinking about these, if we create something and if we just want to do some clear smushing in the back, what would that be like as an overlay? So, you know, again, I always just get curious. So you can see I did the one color up on the cardstock, and I used multiple colors down on the Bristol paper. Now you can see that since there was a lot of water there, they really mixed. So not only I used a pink, a darker pink, and a blue, I was able to get some shades of purple. So, and there go my hands, you know, I'm trying to explain that I wish the camera could pick that up for you, because you really can see the shimmer that's coming across, and that's throughout all of these pens. So I wanted to do it a third time. You know, what would it look like if we, you know, just use the one color? So if you have these, this is an option as well. The purpose of this is to not only show you how to do ink smooshing and what you can do with it, but also the products that you can use. You don't have to be limited to just the Distress ink. I've used Stampin' Up! Ink. I've used Distress ink. And I've gone through the list multiple times. As long as it's water-based, you can do this. You can do this with acrylic paints. It's just the technique. So recently, through a couple kits that I've gotten from Tonic, these glitter markers have been in there. And I am finding them absolutely phenomenal. Wasn't that amazing how that lit up? Absolutely phenomenal. They are water-based. So yes, you can actually, you know, watercolor with them, ink smoosh with them, just as I'm showing here. Now, they will actually have more glimmer and more glitter showing than your Spectrum Noirs will. Your Spectrum Noir shimmer is just that. It's like a shimmer. So it's a very fine glitter. Where these, it's a little bit bigger. It's a little more chunkier. So you're going to see more of it. I mean, you can actually see it as it's going down there. And when I put the water to it, it's actually picking up the ink and making that pull through. So these are absolutely phenomenal. I need to find out if the Nuvo glitter comes in a clear pen. I know they have a shimmer pen. I want to see if this one comes in a clear. I've got my curiosity going. But you can see the two colors, and you know, it's just a shame the camera just doesn't pick it up, but there is so much glitter that's sitting within that. So there's another option. If you have them, why not use them? And that's me hitting the camera. Yes. So dig into that stash. Anything that says water-based, it's gonna work for you. So we've gone through the inks, and of course we've gone through the different types of markers. So the last one that I want to hit, closing this out, are the Distress Oxides. Now remember, these are water-based, but they're not only a dye ink. They are a dye ink and pigment mixture, which does some absolutely phenomenal things. So again, cardstock is first. Some people don't like this. I like the oxide look. I like that when you dry these, now this is just one color, but look at all the different values you get from that color. And that's because of the property of this ink pad. When it dries, it will go to a chalk-like consistency. That's what everyone's calling it, a chalk-like consistency. That's the oxide. It's oxidizing. Okay, so if you've ever seen patina, copper on houses, and you get that green patina that's coming up, that's because it's oxidizing. That's what's happening. That's the whole principle of these inks. And please, if I'm saying something wrong, I don't think so. But again, my opinion, my take on these inks. There are so many videos out when it comes to these. I encourage you to check them out. But you can see, just from the one ink pad, you get these different values. Here's the beauty of the oxides. You can layer on them, where I was able to layer with the others, everything prior. But there was some mixing. And more so. There was more so in mixing. But you can see, as I just take this and I went down into what was there, it's now becoming almost two-dimensional. It's staying on top of what's already there. And it's not taking away too much. It is a little bit, because again, these are water reactive. But you can layer on these, and you can, as long as you dry in between completely each layer. Now, this is where the drying between each layer is extremely important. So I've put my dark color down. Now, these shades probably were not the best, but they were the ones that, just opened my eyes. But you can see I started with the darker, and now I'm going with the lighter. You can actually see the lighter color is sitting on top of the darker. Again, that's because my previous layer is completely dry. If it is not completely dry, it will reactivate with each other. You can also see that the light color does stay there, but again, I'm super drying this. So you can go from dark to light. You can go from light to dark, and you'll keep those colors. That's the beauty of oxides. So you can get some very interesting backgrounds of smooshing your colors. Smooshing. Okay, so you can see the differences there. Now, this last color that I chose, I probably should have chose something completely different. I probably shouldn't have gone this light, but I just wanted to show you that you can get this to go in other areas. And you can see when I put the water to it, it like lights up. It's kind of really awesome. So again, very quickly, going in the number of times that I did, I was trying to be specific, but you can see how that ink picked up some of the green as well. So if you overwork, you will blend. That may not be a bad thing. I'm not saying that's not what you wanted. Maybe that is what you want. So the more you dip down and smoosh and keep it down together onto the craft mat, you really are going to smoosh that paint. So if you want the splatters, then you want to be quick. So it's all ink smooshing. It's all the same. So I'm going to go in with another layer because you can see them. You can see that tattered rose. This paper is getting very worked. That's why I did choose, when it came to the oxides, to use Bristol, because you can use so many layers. If you're only using 2 colors, I think you'd be fine with cardstock. If you're going to constantly keep adding layers and layers, then go to a mixed media paper, go to a watercolor paper, or go to a Bristol. It's going to be able to take that water better and take a hold of it, where cardstock will not. It will actually turn to mush after a while. But you can see now the tattered rose is now on top because I went down and up. I didn't smush it. Last time I smushed it. I moved the cardstock. So you can see that's what the Distress Oxides can do. So let's just show you the Distress Oxides again, but in better colors. So I apologize for the first colors, but again, now you know your principles. So let's really go through this. Again, I've got my Bristol. I'm going to start with my one color. I chose a yellow, a coral, and a pink. So now up, down. I'm hitting all the corners. I like the way that looks. And now I'm just going to dry that. When it comes to your drying, a lot of people ask, well, how do you know it's dry? Could it still be damp? And that's true. If you've been watching, when you first put the cardstock in, the cardstock bows. It actually wants to curl. So you can see that as I keep my heat on it, it flattens back out. I also turn my paper. I'll turn it to the back. I'll dry the back, just like I'm doing here. and I'm sorry, my camera's gonna, or my phone's gonna autofocus because I don't want to go too close to the paper because I don't want to burn it. But you can see you can actually flatten your paper back out. Take the back of your hand and put it on top of your piece. It should be room temperature. If it's cool, it's still wet. So use your dryer again. I've now gone in with my coral color, as you see my awesome knuckles. And you can see how the paper bowed? The paper's bowed. And now you can see as I continue to use my heat gun, it's flattening out. That means it's drying. It's going back. So once I see that the sides are going to curl up, I'm going to grab it and I'm going to flip it over so that I can dry the back side. It'll also start moving because it's getting light. You're taking that heaviness of water out of your piece of paper, believe it or not. So it's going to move. So again, I've also almost got it flat. You're always going to have, with this much water, you're going to have a little bit of warping going on. So now we're going to go in with the lightest shade. And we're just going to put that down on our craft mat. A little tidbit with the drying of a piece of paper. There you go. And now I'm just going to add my yellow. Be very quick. The yellows will pick up. But you can see how now I've got all those colors there. That's the beauty of Distress Oxides. Can you get this same effects with a Distress ink? Another type of ink pad or the markers? You can. You've just got to make sure that you're very quick, that you know exactly where that wants to go. There's just no room for error when it comes to that because they will react. Wherever you put that secondary color, it's going to pull up the original. They're going to react with it. Where this, because you're drying in between the layers, it is allowing the color to stay on top just a little bit. Okay? So that, and again, work on very heavy. If you're using for all of the other materials, you can use a cardstock. For your Distress Oxides, I do suggest a watercolor mixed media or watercolor paper. So these are all of the different cards and backgrounds that we made here. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any other questions, please leave them down below, or any comments, please leave them down below as well. I'll list to some of the products that I used, and I'm just going to choose one color. I'm not going to use or list out all of this individual colors because there was a lot. So I'll just point you to where you can get some of these products that I did use and so forth. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. There will be more technique videos coming out very soon. I'm not quite sure what the next technique video is. I've got to think about that. But there will be a video that shows up the next day, the day after I post this technique video, on how to make cards with these. So, and maybe we'll learn something a little bit more. So again, I hope you found this useful. Just let me know if you have any questions, and talk to you soon. And always remember, be creative.